year or so, blockchain has been all around. We hear blockchain in the financial industry. We hear blockchain in conjunction with Bitcoin. And first things first, with most of these buzzwords, these hype words, people don't take the time to actually think about what they mean. I can tell you myself, I work for one of the largest consulting companies in the world, IBM. And within IBM, a lot of people don't know what Bitcoin is. A lot of people don't know what blockchain is. So I'm quite thrilled to give you your introduction about blockchain. But before I start, I have a confession to make. I am not a blockchain expert. And to go even one step further, I don't think that anyone in this room or around the globe is a blockchain expert. And if anyone in the coming day or two tells you that they're a blockchain expert, I invite you all to leave the room. This is so new. No one can claim expertise in this. Now, have I been involved in implementations, proof of concepts, discussions about strategy? Yes. But with a new topic like blockchain, does that make me an expert? Definitely. Now the first thing that you see up there, next to the title, Your Introduction to Blockchain, is a falcon. The reason I put that falcon up there, because my name is Saqr Ereiqat. Before, people call me Slicker, like this good gentleman in the front here, and other people called me psychedelic yesterday in an event. My name means falcon, so I hope that for the rest of the day we can find out that, you know, when you're thinking about my name, you see that falcon, and you think your introduction to blockchain. Now, to underline what we spoke about, the fact that this is so new, I'd like to do an interactive exercise with you people. Now, to get you warmed up for the day and for sitting throughout the day, I'd like to pose a question. And the question is, when did you first hear about blockchain? Not Bitcoin, blockchain. And I would like to pose that question, and with the answer to the question, I would invite people to stand up. So I'm going to be sitting down myself. And if you heard about blockchain before or in Q1 2015, can I invite you to stand up, please? All right. Oh, please stand up. Okay. All right. I'm not part of that group. If you heard about blockchain, if you remain standing, that would be great. Okay, thank you very much. If you heard about blockchain in Q1 to Q4 2015, can I invite you to please stand up? Okay, great. Now watch out for these guys. These guys are the ones that are going to claim they're experts, right? So, all right, if you heard about blockchain between Q2 and Q4 2015 and Q2 2016. Can I invite you all to stand up, please? Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have the majority of the room, but last but not least, did you come here to find out what blockchain is? If I can invite you to please stand up. Joel, did you come here? I think you were part of the first batch. All right, lovely. Okay, so what we're seeing here, I'd like to invite you all to stay standing just for another minute. I won't make this long. I won't make this long. Okay? So what we're seeing is that really, the majority of us didn't know what blockchain is 2 years ago. Now, in preparation for this, and this is where soon you'll be sitting down, it's just another minute, I did a Google search on prominent terms like artificial intelligence, blockchain, virtual reality, and one other topic. Now, if you believe that blockchain returned 434 million results, can you please sit down? Do you believe that when I searched for blockchain on Google, I got 434 million results? Okay. Anyone here thinking that blockchain would have returned 115 million results? All right? Anyone here thinking it was 79 million results? Okay. Anyone here thinking it was 86 million results? I'm starting to think people are just sitting down, they're not. All right. Anyone thinking that it was 21 million results? Okay. Now, in fact, 86 million results were IoT, Internet of Things. Only 21,100,000 results for blockchain. 79,300,000 results for artificial intelligence and AI. And last but not least, we had virtual reality at 115 million. Now, just to put this in a real life context, the Donald got 434 million results. So what does that really show us? What this shows us is that even among Google search results, blockchain is a new term. So blockchain is promising to change business as we know it today. And when it's promising to do that, it's promising to do that at its core. It's promising to take the mesh of business as we know it today and transform it into the 21st century. Now, if we're talking about the basic mesh of business and blockchain changing the basic mesh of business, let's agree on a few terms that make business. So, business 101. First things first, businesses are created to drive a revenue. In the best case of scenarios, businesses will create a profit. Unless you're an NGO or a not-for-profit organization, you are in business to create a profit, revenue, right? Now, businesses achieve that by interacting with other businesses. They achieve that by interacting with partners, suppliers, vendors, customers. So the first thing that we need to embrace is that business is part of a business network. Businesses do not exist in isolation. Pretty straightforward. Oh, the pointer doesn't reach this far. The next term is wealth. Wealth is the sum of flow of goods and services across any business network. So, if I am a business, and Joel here is a business, and I give Joel my pen, Joel returns money to me, therefore we've created wealth. Now that pen in this example, it's an asset. An asset, thank you Joel, an asset is anything that can be controlled or owned. It might be a tangible or an intangible asset. Okay? In this example, the pen is our asset. Now, businesses interact with each other in something we call a market. Within a market, there's a flow of goods and services across the business network. Okay? Now, within a market, there will be a transaction. And that transaction is, I give you my pen. Right? You're welcome. The transaction is a record of a transfer of assets between two or more participants. Right? So, if I give this good gentleman my pen, there will be an entry into a ledger saying, Saqr has given this good gentleman his pen, and in turn received 100 dirhams. Now, we said in turn receives 100 dirhams, so transactions are controlled by contracts. The contract is the business terms and conditions to the transaction, to the move of assets. So, I give you my pen. Welcome. No, not for free. Business terms and conditions. I demand 1,000 dirhams in return. Therefore, if I give you the pen, you're liable to pay 1,000 dirhams. want to pay up or give me back the tip? Thank you. All right. So a contract is the business terms and conditions under which a transaction occurs. Now, most importantly, when we execute a transaction, a transfer of assets within our business network on the market, we create an entry to a ledger. And that entry to a ledger might be very simple. It might be my shop around the corner that says, when I sell you milk, I will type 10 dirhams of revenue. Or it might be something very complex that is an ERP system that says whenever goods are moved from the goods receipt area to the goods issue area, this kind of posting needs to occur in the accounting books. So to do a quick recap, we spoke about a business network. Businesses exist in a business network, interacting in a market through transactions in which they transfer assets. These asset transfers are governed by contracts, business terms and conditions, and are recorded in a ledger. And let's stick with ledgers for a second, because ledgers are very important. Each one of the terms we've mentioned is important, but ledgers are key to blockchain. Now, in today's business, the majority of businesses have a multitude of ledgers. I bet you this pen, to stay with this pen, that if you go out to reception right now and you ask them if they have one ledger, they'll tell you, well, we'll have a room ledger, and we'll have a ledger for Velocity, the bar, and we'll have a ledger for restaurants, and there's a ledger for bed sheets, and there's a multitude of ledgers. And then companies like IBM and Ernst & Young and other technology companies and consulting companies around the world make a living out of going in and consolidating those ledgers. It's $1 billion industry. Suddenly we're implementing ERPs and business information. We're implementing management reporting. We're going in and doing financial consolidation because it's everywhere. No one knows where that one transaction is recorded. Where is my profit? So in today's world, you'll have, let's say, a government entity that needs to verify your ID to your employer and needs to verify your ID to the licensing agency. There's a multitude of ledgers which essentially use the same information. And this is exactly where blockchain comes in. Blockchain has traits of, blockchain is a new way to record transactions. It has traits of a traditional database. But what it does differently is that it uses smart contracts to create cryptographically tamper-proof entries to shared ledgers. Cryptographically tamper-proof entries to shared ledgers. So the first thing that we're saying is that there's suddenly now not one ledger that sits here. The ledger sits across the business network. So you define your business network. You say in the transaction of pen transfer, there's two people involved and there's another entity involved that releases the funds. That is now my business network. Because essentially, if I give you the pen and you give me payment and we both agree that this transaction is complete, the transaction is complete. But have you registered a house lately or a car? Have you had to go and run through the electricity authority and then to the land department? And from the land department, you need to give them the same information as in the electricity authority. And you're taking, particularly for people here in the region, you're taking your visa and your passport copy and your Emirates ID copy to a million places. Now imagine if we could all look into this one book, that one single source of truth. And that's what blockchain is promising to do. And there are 4 keys to blockchain, and blockchain for business in particular. The first thing we spoke about, that's a shared ledger. We have a business network, and across that business network there is one ledger, one book. One single source of truth that everyone can see. Let's take a car as an example. The sale of a car is part of a blockchain network, and a shared ledger can be accessed by the licensing authority, by the insurance, by the police, by the dealership that sells you the car. No running around here. The next thing that is important to blockchain is the smart contract. And this is not just us calling a contract smart because we want to make it a buzzword. No, this is changing the way we think about contracts. Because really, technology has leaped millennia into the future, but we're still using contracts which are, for everything I could find, date back to the early Egyptians. So we're now saying these contracts are not paper contracts anymore. We have business terms and conditions on the blockchain network, on the business network, and we're creating smart contracts, because really, when I'm selling a car, there's a unified contract for that. When I'm selling a house, there's a unified contract for that. So why should I go and do this transaction over and over and over again if there's a unified, agreed way of doing it? Now the next part that is key is consensus. So we said that we have a business network. And within that business network, we have smart contracts. And we said in the earlier slide that we create cryptographically tamper-proof entries into shared ledgers. But how do we ensure that they are cryptographically tamper-proof? Everyone within a business network needs to agree that this transaction has happened. And that's going back to the point that I was making back with this gentleman here. If I give him my pen, and he gives me the payment, why do I need, yes, this is a payment. Why do I need 5 different authorities to say that this has happened? I received the money. He agrees that he received the pen. Through consensus, we agree that this transaction has happened. So consensus is another key part to the way blockchain works for business. Now, what use would all of that be if everyone could see every transaction? Maybe I bought this pen for 500 dirhams and I sold it on for 1,000, making a 500 dirham profit. Now we're saying it's a shared ledger, but privacy is another key in blockchain. You're only allowed to see the entries that, or you have the access right that is specific to your transaction. You can't see every single other transaction. I open up the blockchain to say, this gentleman is allowed to see that I own the pen. And this gentleman opens up his side and says, okay, I am Saqr Ereiqat, or I am Michael Williams, and I assure you that I am that Michael Williams, confirmed by the blockchain, and I own this pen right now. And through consensus, the transaction is complete. So 4 keys: shared ledger, smart contract, privacy, and consensus. Now what will that essentially drive? What is the benefit of this? One is it will start saving time, right? Think about how simple life could be if we have one single source of truth. No identification authority, no Department of Land, no regulatory authority that says that this happened or didn't happen. It saves time. Next thing is, through it saving time, it removes cost. I alluded earlier in my presentation to ERPs and to BI implementation and consolidation. Suddenly, we can remove that cost. Not entirely, of course. And let me pause here for a second. Now, blockchain is still in its conceptual stages, so there's no real-life working application of blockchain other than Bitcoin. But this is what it's promising to be. Next thing is it reduces risk. Why does it reduce risk? Because that shared ledger is shared across the entire business network. It's one ledger that is shared across the entire business network. It's not centralization. It's not one central ledger. No, that ledger is shared across the entire network. And if that ledger is shared across the entire network and we're trying to achieve consensus through it, imagine how difficult it would become to start and hack an entire business network. You would have to attack all of the business network in one go. Am I saying it's impossible? No, but it's much more difficult. And the next one is probably the most important one. It increases trust. Because what we're lacking in today's business world is trust, which is why we have banks and regulatory authorities coming in, charging us for the service to ensure, yes, this is my customer, he has this fund, he's able to procure this asset. So we go back to a trusted business network. Now, why should you care about this? Why should this make sense to anyone here? Now, obviously, everyone here in the room is interested in blockchain. Gartner, on a yearly basis, releases something called the hype cycle. And on the hype cycle, they rate new technologies to what their potential is. If we look at blockchain, right here, it's just at the peak of inflated expectations. So right now, people will go out there and tell you blockchain is the response to everything. But really what it is, blockchain is right now the hammer and everything is a nail because you have a hammer. But what we can see in this diagram as well, and again, this is Gartner, not me speaking, is that within 5 to 10 years, they're expecting this to be widely adopted. So we spoke about the essence of blockchain and about what blockchain means in terms of business. Now, over the past year, let's not exaggerate, over the past year, I've been speaking to people that are much older and wiser than me, that have been around when hypes like blockchain happened before. I've been in the market for 20, 30 years. And they seem to unanimously agree that this has traits of the internet. The same hype that is being created around it today was at the time created around the internet. So, if we look around the world, what is happening? The World Economic Forum went out and they asked the participants in the World Economic Forum, give us your point of view around blockchain. And what happened is 80% of the banks came back and said that they're currently exploring blockchain opportunities. So the World Economic Forum is talking about blockchain. CoinDesk, which is a research agency mainly dealing with Bitcoin and blockchain, went out and they created something called the State of Blockchain Report. In the State of Blockchain Report, they've asked banks out there, what are you currently doing on blockchain? And 14 of those 30 banks came back and said, we are currently working on blockchain. These are top banks. These are HSBC, Citi, Deutsche Bank. They're currently working on blockchain proof of concepts. Why proof of concepts? Because there is no technology out there right now on blockchain that can support transactions as we deal with them today. The technology is still not stable enough, but they are exploring it. Out of 63 public exchanges, 21 are currently exploring blockchain proof of concepts and opportunities. These are the NASDAQs and the Frankfurt Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange of this world. These guys are out there. 21 of the 63 globally are currently on blockchain. And this information is probably dated by now. It's a month and a half old and blockchain is moving really fast. Now the Deutsche Bank went out there and they did their own survey. They asked their business network, what do you believe will happen with blockchain coming into the world? 87% of the respondents came back and said, we are expecting this to have an impact on the securities market. 87% of respondents. 78% of those respondents believe it will be actively used over the next 6 years. So So we're not talking about something that is far beyond our reach right now. Now is the time to start thinking about what you want to be doing on blockchain. If the World Economic Forum is doing it, if the Deutsche Bank is doing it, if technology exchanges and security exchanges are doing it, now is the time to start thinking about it. So if I was in 1994, and that's a parting thought that I want to leave you with. If in 1994, someone would have come up to you and told you, in 2016, the impact of the internet is going to be everywhere. Now what I want you to ask yourself, and what I want to leave you with, is if you would have known that in 1994, the impact of the internet would be as big as it is today, what is it that you would have done in the 1994 of the internet? Thank you very much.